Hi, my name is Eric Munoz. I'm an application scientist here at Felix Instruments CID Bio-Science.
Hi, my name is Shinsuke Agehara. I'm a plant physiologist at the University of Florida. I studied crop stress physiology and crop management practices for vegetable and small fruit crops, including tomato, strawberry, peppers. I also studied new crop in Florida, and including herbs, artichoke, and blackberry. My main focus is stress physiology, and in Florida, heat stress is one of the major stress. So I studied heat stress management for strawberry production, and then I also studied the basic crop management practices, nutrient management, and irrigation, and so on. And I do a lot of studies on roots too. I have a rhizotron that we built in the lab. So the one we use is the box one, the root box with the transparent window. And so we try to focus on the root development in our soil, and then try to optimize nutrient management practice based on the root morphology, and also try to develop, root stimulating practices, something like that. And we also use the mini rhizotron that we purchased from your company. And right now we are using that for hops. And I don't know if you're familiar with this crop, but hops, is the ingredient for beer. Huh? So hops are typically grown in Pacific Northwest, Washington State, and Oregon and Idaho. And we are trying to see if we can grow hops in subtropics. And then so, the adaptation to the climate is the major challenge. So, this is kind of related with stress physiology. So this is one of my projects here, and we are looking at many different management aspects, but we are also looking at roots, how herbs develop roots in our soil, and so that's the main application of the root scanner.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's really interesting, though, the trying to grow hops in Florida. I know hops is a very important crop here in the Pacific Northwest. There's a lot of breweries. It's
yeah. Where are you located?
Me, I'm outside of Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay, good. So
yeah,
right in the area. Yeah.
Exactly. My old company actually, it was a dietary supplement company. They grew their own hops for herbal supplements as a diuretic for Okay. But CID Bio-Science is actually in Washington, just alongside the river, alongside the Columbia River.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to Portland and Yakima. That's where herbs are grown, and you see the commercial production, and so we didn't have good success in a couple past years, but that's mainly because the environment is very different, and the major limitation was that we don't have optimum daylight hours, that we don't have enough day length to promote enough vegetative growth before flowering. So we use supplemental lighting so we can change the photo period, and then we can control the timing of flowering. So after that, the project is going better, and because of the warm climate, we can grow herbs twice a year. So we have spring season and fall season, and so that's what's unique about growing herbs in Florida. So, and that's also making interesting to look at the roots, because they have kind of two growing cycle, and which is very unique for a perennial crop. Normally perennial crop, they have one growing cycle each year. They produce, then they go, senescent, and then they go dormant, and then they start over, right? But here, plants go dormant, but only for like 1.5 months. Then start the spring season. 2 to 2.5 months earlier than the Pacific Northwest. Then they can finish the first season by June, and then right after that, they start the fourth season. So, between the two seasons, the growing habit is different. But I also think that the roots, the morphology development might be also different between the two seasons, and then also dormancy too. So that's why we are trying to study using the mini rhizotron.
I see. So you haven't collected any of that data yet? Have you? You have any initial results possibly? Have you noticed any trends?
We have some data. Well, I would say images. We haven't analyzed the images yet. So we installed mini rhizotron this spring. So we started a new trial in the spring, and we installed. Let me see. How many did we install? 9, maybe around between 30 to 40. And we install a different position for each plant. And so what we did is we install one tube right by the ground, right by the the plant, and then we install another tube 12 inches from the plant, and then another tube 24 inches from the ground. And the tube 24 inches from the ground is actually outside of the bed. And so one in the middle of the bed, just by the plant, one on the shoulder of the bed, which is 12 inches from the ground, and then additional, one more tube outside of the bed. And so we are trying to see how, how much the roots can spread.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to see the vertical distribution, but also horizontal distribution of the roots.
I see. This is my next question is, so these are grown in beds, not in the field, and how, and then for the soil, what kind of soil did you use? Were you using something that would kind of imitate, soil from Florida as opposed to, possibly something from more of our region?
So we grow herbs outdoors.
Outdoors.
We make well, the beds are not that tall. It's just that we installed ground cover, and that's mainly for the weed control.
I see.
And the weed management is very important in Florida because our climate is so warm and the winter is short. So we don't really have a break for the weeds. They can continue to grow almost year round. And so we try to cover as much bare ground as possible. So we put the ground cover along the row, and then between the rows, we planted grass. So the bare ground is minimized. So we don't cultivate the soil. We don't till the soil between the season, but that's we control weeds just by covering the ground as much as possible. And our soil is sandy soil. More than 95% is sand.
Yeah.
And so that's also a big difference from Pacific Northwest. We had to change the irrigation and nutrient program based on our soil, and we have to use a lot of water. And during the peak time, we put 6 gallons of water per plant every day.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have during the peak time 6 irrigation cycles a day, 6 times, and then each time we put about a gallon. Okay, and starting from 8 a.m., 10 a.m., noon, and every 2 hours, and it's a lot of water. And
that is a lot of water.
Yeah, we have soil moisture sensor, so we monitor the moisture. But if you don't put this much water, that the plants can get stressed. So they they use a lot of water, they have a lot of vines, they transpire a lot of water, and then also the soil, it doesn't hold the water well. So, our irrigation program is pretty intense. And also nutrient program, I think we are applying, much higher than university recommendation, like a typical recommendation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So why the interest in hops in Florida?
So I think, the wines, as I mentioned, we have 2 seasons, spring and fall season. And our goal is to maximize the production in each season by, optimizing the crop management practice and supplemental lighting, changing the photo period. That was, the first step. And now plants are growing better. And so we have to, redevelop the optimal nutrient program. When plants grow, better, they require more. Then we have to find out what's the optimum amount of nutrients to apply. So that's why we are looking at the amount of nutrients we have to apply, optimum plant spacing. Initially, we are using narrow spacing because plants didn't grow so well. But with supplemental lighting, plants are growing much, much better. So wider spacing, we found that is better. So now we have to reevaluate the plant spacing and many other things too. We are trying to see what's the best pruning practice, and then also the timing of the supplemental lighting. We can control the timing of flowering by deciding when to turn off the light, but that timing I think is important in each season. So the timing we are trying to find out when is the best time in spring and fall. We also have to consider the hurricane season. We have hurricane that the season is from typically June to September. That's the peak time. So we are trying to harvest hops in June before we might get hit by a hurricane. And then so when the trying to start the fall season when the plant like starting from late June or early July, and even when we have hurricane, if the plants are small, the damage can be minimized. And another reason why we schedule the spring harvest in June is because we have rainy season, and we don't want to be picking hops when when it rains a lot. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider, and then try to optimize what we do based on our unique environment.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Florida has, is one of the most interesting areas for production, just because of it has such a unique environment.
Yeah. But we have a lot of craft breweries. So we have more than 300, and I think maybe about 100 just in Tampa alone. I work in a research center located near Tampa. So,
I see.
So I know a lot of local craft breweries, and then they also support a project. And then so I invite them to come to our hop yard, do sensory evaluation, and then we provide hops to them so they can brew beer using our hops. And then we also do beer tasting event and things like that. And so we have a market for hops.
Yeah.
A lot of interest in locally grown hops. It's just that it was not it's not easy to grow hops here. So a lot of things to figure out. But I think we are I think doing better, and then coming up with a good practice now. This season, our yield was more than 60% of commercial yield in the Pacific Northwest, and that was our first season yield. And half is perennial, so it takes a couple of years to get the maximum production. So we could get more than 60% in just the first season yield. So next year it should go up, and then plus we have 2 seasons, spring and fall. So when we combine the 2 seasons, even in the first year, we can get almost the same yield as Pacific Northwest. And so we are excited now, and we are hoping that we can develop a new industry here for growers and the craft brewery industry.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's one of my, beer is such a fun thing and important. So I think that's really interesting work, especially, with those types of yields, initial yields. So I really appreciate you for joining me on this session, Shinsuke. And I wanted to keep in touch. Maybe we could do this again in the future. I'd love to hear more about your hops experiments and research. Maybe next year after your first initial. Oh wait, did you begin this year or last year was your first?
We started a project this spring, so we've been collecting the root images starting from the planting. So, and we are scanning roots every 2 weeks. So we have more than, let me see, like 15, 16 sets of images now, starting from the spring. So we are going to continue like year round. So we know, how roots are behaving during spring season, fall season, and then also during the senescence and dormancy, and then also after dormancy, again the next growing cycle. So next spring we will have the complete set of data for 1 year, starting from spring of year 1 to spring of year 2.
Oh wow! Okay, sounds great. Let's plan to meet then and talk a little bit more about your research.
Sure, anytime. Yeah.
Appreciate it, Shinsuke.
You're welcome. Okay.
Have a good day.
Yeah, nice talking with you, and have a nice day.
Nice talking with you.